You're very welcome to the virtual launch of Anne Murphy's latest collection of stories. When I say latest, I'll come to that in a second. They're stories that were written over the last while, but the twist or the unique selling point of the latest version, if you will, is that they are in 3 different languages as well as English, the latest one being in Irish. As we know, plans and circumstances have changed for everybody. So we're doing this in a virtual environment. We were to have had a signing on Friday evening, the 26th at Cannes Bookshop, and the launch itself in the Home Rule Club, neither of which we can do. As you can see, we're virtual, we're Zooming, and we're all keeping each other safe. So we'll kick things off. First of all, Anne, where did these stories come from? Were they all written in one go, or were they stories that you collected over time and then collated?
Oh, well, the stories began with a course that I did in Kilkenny in the clubhouse, given by Jerry Moran, who's an accomplished local writer. And that was 2004. But before that, I had been writing poetry. So then I joined a little group called Paper Bag Writers, and I joined a print journalism course courtesy of the VEC and the Kilkenny People local newspaper. And that really got me going. I got huge encouragement to do something with both the poems and the short stories. So by 2007, I had 2 books published by originalwriting.ie. And an artist friend and a photographer friend helped me with some photographs for the book of poetry. And the cover of the book, Strange Fruit, that we're talking about tonight, was done by an artist called Anne Maloney in Limerick.
Right. Joining us
beautiful artist.
There's some beautiful illustrations, some beautiful black and white illustrations inside the book as well. I forgot to introduce you, Owen Gumaleshka. Owen O'Neill is well known to people in the Irish language movement in Kilkenny from his involvement in the Gael Skull all the way through, but he's also fulfilled on this occasion the role of translator along with a couple of other people. He's been part of the translation team because we have, as I say, 3 languages as well as English. So Owen, we'll come back to you in a second because I'm intrigued about the process of translation. But to come back to your own start in all of this, and you had 2 books all of a sudden. But what was what tipped it over into, I have these books, now let's translate them into French, Spanish and Gaeilge? What was the tipping point for that?
Well, I went on a house swap to Valencia, Spain. And I had the idea before that. I think it was that I used to buy a book in English and French, or in English and Spanish, or English and Irish, and think that I could improve my language skills that way. But that was very cumbersome and it was expensive. So I thought of the parallel text. So all you have to do is look from left to right and back again. Yes. And I was very lucky in that I found very helpful translators in Kilkenny, very dedicated, good fun. It was just a pleasure. And they would come back and forth to me and they'd say, now, what did you really mean by such and such?
Yeah.
You know, we could spend ages on one little piece. But the French translators were Manuel and Xavier. The Spanish translator was Almudena. And the Irish translators were Owen and Dermot. And I had so much fun with them all. But I remember Manuel putting me on guard because I had written a book about my father and he was from Derry. And I mentioned the song Danny Boy. And I wanted her to put at the end a little note to say that it's also known as the Derry Air. And she looked at me. And she said, oh, no.
We won't be calling it that.
Yeah, so she also told me that we talk about double entendre. And she said a French person wouldn't know what you're talking about, that it's double sens. Okay. So I actually have it up on my site, double sens.
Well,
So,
it's actually maybe it's the right time to come in and to talk to Owen as the translator, because when Anne and I were speaking before, the one thing that jumped out at me, and probably because I'd heard you speak, Anne, I heard your accent, I heard your way of
mm,
expressing yourself. So that's unique to every individual. But now, Owen, you have to step in and not only understand what is being discussed from the from the words, but you've also got things like accent, emphasis, pronunciation, and vernacular. So was that a challenge for you, or did the English that Anne speaks lend itself very neatly to Irish, because they're, as it were, they're fitta futa?
And certainly there's like where I had difficulty, I always went back to Anne. Do you know what would something specific? Now I cannot think now at the minute of what it was, but I would go back to Anne, because what you're wanting to get is, what is she saying? Do you know what I mean? One thing, like with English, it is a fantastic language, like, because you can turn all sorts of meanings with English, right? Whereas Irish is very more specific, you know. So anyway, but it like where I had a difficulty, I went back to Anne and I asked her, okay, what's the, you know, what is the what do I want to get across here? You know,
no, we were laughing about phrases that you might use and you don't think about it. Like the double entendre is the perfect example. But in the Irish or Hiberno English, or whatever way you want to phrase it, phrases like catch yourself on or cop on, or
yeah.
how would you translate that so that it doesn't sound like a dictionary, like the classic Google translation translates it virtually, and there's no meaning in it, there's no depth in it. It is that word is translated to that one. I suppose that the only thing you could do is to go back, and if you didn't know, you'd say, well, what did you mean? What exactly did you mean? What were you trying to say? But back to you, Anne, then that introduces the possibility that you have to rethink about what it is you were saying in the piece, because there might be a more, what's the word? Better is the wrong word. A different way, a more poetic way of saying something in another language. I would say Gaeilge, for example. There might be a word, or there might be a shanokal or something that is the perfect description of what you're on about. Was that difficult? You didn't have to change or go back on anything, did you?
I didn't change the English because I had already the book printed in English.
Of course, yes.
You see, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how things are interpreted in Spain and France. I went to France then on a house share, and it helped me enormously to, start using the language and having fun with it, I suppose.
Right. And where was the idea to move to France? Where did that come about? Was that like a pen pal or just an interest in travel?
It was actually one day I had been to Lanzarote for the first time ever, and I was very disappointed because the only place I heard Spanish was at the reception desk. So I came home, it was a grey day in Kilkenny, came into the kitchen, turned on the radio, and I heard a lady called Gabrielle from Valencia looking for a house share. And would you believe, I didn't realize it at the time, but I knew Gabrielle, and even though she had an unusually Spanish name, I suppose, or a French name, she was actually a Kilkenny girl, married to a Spanish guy. And really, this happened on a Wednesday. I had lots of photographs of my house. I sent them off to the Ray D'Arcy show. And I think by the weekend, myself and Gabrielle were chatting, and she remembered playing in my house.
No way.
And she had played in my house, and she had an interview for a job, and she had two interviews lined up, and she said she wanted to work as an architect because she had studied but not worked as an architect. And she had an interview 20 minutes from my house, and literally it was an architect's office in the middle of a field on the way to Tipperary.
Right.
So we were both happy.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the travel, I mean, you spent time, if I remember correctly, you spent time in France as well.
Yes, I did. Yeah, very short time because of
Yeah,
COVID,
right,
but it
right.
was well worth it. I got lots of stories, and on my website, you can go into my previous website where I've the stories translated into French and Spanish.
Right.
So,
And
yeah.
what was your experience? Did your knowledge of French serve you well when you went in? I think we've all had the experience of having a little enough to get by. You won't starve. You can order dinner or
Mhm.
a drink or whatever. But that's different because you know you're going to be gone or moving on that day, or you'll be going home in a week. When you went there, you were intending to stay. You weren't just going on a
I
holiday.
was, yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how did you find that? How did your educated French stand to you, if you know what I mean?
Well, I honestly was lucky as a teenager. I got to go to France twice.
Right.
You could say almost on my own. I
Okay.
went at 13 and I went to a family of 10 children. And then when I was 17, I went to an elderly couple who had no kids. I thought that I would be minding kids. So I had a very positive experience and I loved the language. And that, I suppose, it comes back to you. I wasn't too fearful.
Right.
I wasn't too fearful, really.
I don't know about you, but my experience in France was that what little French I had disappeared very quickly. And then I don't know if this is your experience on. I defaulted to Irish for reasons best known to myself in Brittany. But because of that, they said, "Oh, you are not English." And I'm going, "No, I'm Irish." And all of a sudden their attitude towards me changed. Somebody said, "Oh, Celtic, great, brilliant," you know. But have you had that experience on, being away foreign? Because sometimes the experience of speaking it when you're speaking to native speakers is very different from what you hope is the right way of saying things or whatever. If you
Well, I do. Well, I learned. I suppose with languages, my uncle went to Mannheim, and I was about 14 at the time. My father came up with this idea of we'll play a trick now. We get a book and we'll learn a few German phrases. You see, so he had a book in a way. It was what to say in German, and anyway, so I figured at the time, I says, if I could actually hear the language, I can pick it up better, you know. But I couldn't get a German station on the radio, and I got a French station on the radio. So there was me trying to learn off this German stuff, and I used to listen to Europe 1, which was a radio station, French radio station. And anyway, whatever. When Tony came back from Germany, I remember we're throwing out these Germans, but they were all completely wrong because there was the pronunciation was totally off. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
But I found whenever I went to France, France just came easy for whatever reason. Maybe it was from listening to that radio or something. I never learned French in school now,
Right.
you know.
Well, I did, and I gave it up after Intercept. But I remember being away in Paris with somebody who worked for the European Commission, and she was fluent, and she was our godsend because we stuck around. We were like ducklings behind her when we went into a restaurant or whatever. I was this lovely Algerian waiter this particular night, and she was chatting away to him, and she started to laugh, like obviously laugh. I said, "What did he say to you?" He said, "You sound like a newsreader." That her French was very precise.
So
that
perfect,
it's so perfect. But and it kind of brings me back, and this is kind of part of the question, Anne, is you're very clear in your mind as the writer what it is you want to say, how you want to say it, and you have a way of phrasing it that's unique to yourself. But that's a function of where you learn to write or whatever language. Was that something that you were conscious of in your style? Because it's kind of connected back to, well, this is what you mean, this is how I'm saying it, and now in Owen's case, you're going to Owen to allow him to, or ask him to translate into another language as its differences. Was that something that you thought about, or did you just let the original story stay the way it was?
Yes, I did. I was already, because it was already published in English, that it wasn't going to be changed, if you like. So I suppose that's why there was a lot of toing and froing with the translators as to what I meant about this and that. I found that they got into the stories. I mean, I remember Owen saying about the story about moving, it was about moving house, and being particularly caught by the friendship between my mother and a friend of hers who were down polishing a floor together, knowing this would be the parting of the ways. I think you also, Owen, seemed to like one of my favorites, which was First Time, which was a child going off on an adventure. And fully confident that I was going to walk all the way from Ballymoney to Port Stewart without a bother. But it didn't quite work out that way.
It seems like the right time maybe to hear a snippet of the story, and then, you know, for people who can speak Irish, like I'm conscious that people watching may not be fluent in Irish, but they'll get a sense of what's there. But it's back to that point you made very early on, that your approach to learning a language was to, okay, I understand what's going on here. I have the rough meaning, and now I can kind of find my way through because I can recognize some words. Now, depending on your experience with the teaching of Irish and depending on your age, it could be a very different experience. I know people who won't even dream of reading Irish, but other people can academically make their way through an Irish text and translate it, like we were saying earlier on, and that's it. But there's no meaning attached to it. It's an academic, mechanical thing that is a skill that you learn, you translate, and you move on. But maybe if we hear a snippet of one of the stories and hear the Irish equivalent, it'll give people a sense of what's going on within this version of the book. So do you want to lead off for us?
Yeah. So First Time, just a sentence from that story. Cars passed occasionally, but I looked straight ahead. I knew enough to recognize that a lift with a stranger was out of the question. So when a green Volkswagen slowed its pace and the car window was rolled down, I kept on walking.
Okay. So Owen, an féidir le é aistriú bhfuil an
All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. O am gaham vicarna gulhart ach dark me cheer hooray. The essigum gamai gan sheeba glaka o strandshire. Martian nur a volley Volkswagen glass agus nur islio an enyog land me a ray shoe.
See, as I said, if you have a grasp of Irish, that's an easy jump. But if you don't, I think that's the joy of the book, that you can go, okay, so that's how you structure a sentence. I recognize that word. Oh, that's what that one means. Oh, Stranshire. Oh, okay. And I think it's, I suppose it's one of those things that I'm trying to come at the point that this is not just a book for people who are trying to learn Irish or French or Spanish. It's a book of short stories. But it also has if you like, the unique selling point of the added advantage that you can see its equivalent in another language as well. It's not, you're not trying to sell the same book 3 times. Like there are different things going on, if you know what I mean, Anne. And was that part of the reasoning to approach the language versions, if you like?
Part of the reason to
share, you said at the start that you would buy books in different languages and read them in English first, and then as it were work your way through, and kind of, it's like reverse engineering to go, okay, well, I know what that meant. Okay, well, the equivalent is over there in that paragraph, and hopefully I can get a sense of the language, the written language.
Yeah,
do you know what I
mean?
Make
it easy. It, you know, I mean, people do tend to like, well, it doesn't take too long to read a short story. And, you know, you can spend a lot of time on one page and you can come back, finish it off later, whatever. You can bring it on a train with you. You know, you bring a book. I did find it very helpful myself, you know, even though I'd read the stories before, and, you know, I hope to continue reading them.
Right.
Improving.
Well, you know, it's like that phrase. I remember Christy Hennessy once said, he said, the great thing about being a songwriter is you're the first one to hear the song. Like, he believed in the magic of creating it. And he said, that's my joy. He says, now I want to give that song to you, which is, you know, so you've read it, you understand, obviously you knew what you meant when you were writing it. And just on that point, some of them are quite personal. They're quite, you know, they're quite intimate in terms of detail, as well as just the lovely memoir pieces. And I was like, oh, and the image of the tear on the polished floor. It was just such a powerful image that you were in a time and a place. You came across with the emotion as well as the factual. You know, you set the scene and you also set the emotion, and it was so powerful. But some of them are quite intimate. I mean, did you have a hesitation in going, am I oversharing, or look?
Well,
You know what I
actually,
mean?
one of my stories is called Farewell, and I kind of looked at it today and I thought, so, well, I mean, there's healthy flirting right throughout this book. And sometimes I'd wonder, should I say that? But, you know, I take a little leap. I mean, if you saw the poetry, you know, it's quite straight up, and but it's quite comical also. In the story Farewell, I happened to be in a house that was both for work and home, and a chap was good at photography. His boss was away. He took out his camera and he photographed me around the house. And there's a line in that, we dove and darted like deer and hunter. Loosely speaking, my clothes remained attached to my body. Oh,
to use the expression you said a mouthful there. No,
yeah.
But you know, but at the same time, there's you're what I loved about that particular one, because I said, okay, that's very intimate. That has the potential to kind of cross a line, or it's a moment between previous strangers that, oh, okay. But I thought what was lovely, I mean, you just said, look, it's okay. Spoiler, folks, everything was fine. But at the same time, though, you had a nice way of sharing that intimacy, which you have to have as a photographer's model, which you were, or subject. But what I loved about it, and it's a thread that runs through the book, and I'd love people to read it for that reason, is that without sounding patronizing, you're fearless. It's on your mind, you speak your mind, you write it down. And I think it's refreshing. There's no, what's the word? There's no artifice. You're not trying to make things up. I'm as sure as I can be that every word written down there is true and happened to you. Okay, maybe they're works of fiction, but if they are, they're very, very good works of fiction, because you know, they seem very, very real.
Yeah.
Will we get another snippet, and maybe on it translate again?
What about you, Owen? Is there one
I can
you'd
do
like
that
to pick?
one if you want. That one you just did there, if you want that. Do you want that?
Yes.
Camera in mano.
Okay.
Okay, that's what Anne was talking about there. Okay, I'd say this now in Espanol. Cámara en mano, nos lanzamos por la casa como cierva y cazador. Y durante la caza conseguí no perder mi vestido. Sinead?
But this, see, again, I think that's one of the lovely things about it, is that, I don't know, listening to you read that out, there's a part of me, because I've gone through this in the Irish book. I'm now grasping for, I'm listening out for little clues, words that might be words I didn't know I knew, kind of thing. You know, it's like when T.G. Carr was Tina G, they used to move the news around so people would happen on it. They wouldn't actively go for the news at 10 o'clock, but it could be 10 past 10 or 5 to 10, because they had this GAA gold. I think it was a very clever trick, because people would watch the news and go, oh, I kind of knew what he was talking about there, because they'd seen the 6 o'clock or the 9 o'clock or whatever. So I think it was a very clever way of getting people to engage. Whereas if you said, I want you to watch the news in another language, you go, forget it. That's not going to happen, you know. From the point of view of the book itself, one other thing I suppose that occurs to me, given that we're now in a virtual world rather than what would be normal, that you would read the book, you would sign the book, you'd read from the book, and people would walk away with a physical book in their hands. Have you given any thought to audiobooks as a matter of interest?
I haven't really. I've listened to audiobooks. Oh, well, I have actually. What am I saying? I got my stories taped. I have CDs. Now I know CDs aren't kind of used as much as before, but I have plenty of CDs.
It depends. Look over my shoulder here. There's enough CDs to build a house.
I have the stories.
Yeah,
I have them, and they're good to go. They were done in a studio, and likewise, I suppose I did a little stage performance. I want live performance in Clare's Theatre over a period of time for Fringe Festival of Arts Week, and I put poems to music, and they were videoed, and that, you know, and the whole thing was recorded. So,
well, no, that's good to know. And again, because we're now in the virtual world, one of the things that we're doing, obviously we're recording our conversation here, but given your website, will people be able to go and find those recordings?
Certainly some of them, and I'll probably, as time goes on now, I'll put on more.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, because conscious of time, sending people in the right direction. The book is in physical form. It's out and it's available in. I know it's available in Cannes Bookshop. Is it available anywhere else in Kilkenny?
In the book centre.
In the book centre,
also,
okay.
Yes.
And elsewhere for people not from Kilkenny?
Elsewhere, I've been in touch with Charlie Byrne in Galway and Shopalore in Dublin, and let me see, Cork Vibes and Scribes.
All right, okay.
And Waterstones. So that's all underway.
All underway. It's great to see, because the independent bookstores have been, you know, they've turned themselves inside out to get people books and deliveries and all that sort of thing during the lockdowns. The other place that people could go, they can buy the book from your website?
They can, yeah.
All right.
Either book, either of the English to French, English to Irish, and English to Spanish, and the poetry, there's a limited edition. It's bilingualbooks.ie, and to go to the shop, it's just bilingualbooks.ie/shop. So
great stuff. Yeah. Well, it's like I said to you when we spoke first about the launch, and it's a pity in a way we didn't get to, you know, make it happen in front of people, but hopefully people have a sense of the book, what it's about. I think you've given, you've certainly given a taste of what it is. And Owen, from the point of view of the, you're the sole representative of the translation team. Would you do it again? You know, was it something that you kind of said, I didn't think I'd do this, and now I've done it?
It was. It was good. Now, Dermot Druhan did it as well. Now, Dermot was also involved in the translating, you know, and then the other people then that did the French and the Spanish as well. You know, like, okay, yeah. Sometimes like it just flies. Other times it can be harder going. You know, that sort of way. Yeah. You know, so it just depends. Yeah. But anyway, I must say I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed dealing with Anna. I must say she was very good.
Thanks, Owen, and likewise. You know. You remember, Owen, we were talking about, say, parlons français made easy.
Yeah.
There was a piece we wanted to kind of get out there, because we know that there are people around, you know, who are specifically wanting to improve their language skills. If I did a little snippet here, could you repeat it in French, Owen?
Go on, sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
Would you have something there? Would you have something handy?
Or
how do you mean? If not, I can do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You do it. Yeah. Go on.
Okay. It's Parling Français made easy. I used to buy books in English and the same book in French. For example, No and Me, No et Moi by Delphine de Vegan. An expensive and tedious way to improve my language skills. Let's just say that parallel text changes all of that. All you have to do is to look left to right and back again. Okay, here goes. J'avais l'habitude d'acheter des livres en anglais et le même livre en français. Par exemple, No et Moi de Delphine de Vegan. Un moyen coûteux et fastidieux d'améliorer mes compétences linguistiques. Disons simplement que le texte parallèle change tout cela. Tout ce que vous avez à faire est de regarder de gauche à droite et de revenir.
Très bien. Sinead. And you know, Michelle in Spanish, Michelle, what do you say?
Oh, yeah.
Do you want that?
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Solía comprar libros en inglés y el mismo libro en español. Por ejemplo, El alquimista de Paulo Coelho. Una forma costosa y tediosa de mejorar mis habilidades lingüísticas. Pero el texto paralelo cambia todo eso. Todo lo que tienes que hacer es mirar de izquierda a derecha y viceversa. Voilà. Sinead. Okay. Jim Mission Sigilik,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
land right. A couple of numbers,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay. Sin just ashta no and rud of Yanara.
Yeah.
Begratium Laura Kenneth de Merle. I was in Lord Kena the Frankish Mahamna. And Father Hurricane, Mahamna Sample Wine. Balach Deer agus Surach, Hon Maskilna Changa Yosu. Neeler a Gananian text co-roar for Shinner Fat. Like Arian text co-roar for Shinner. Neeler Jenna got a fech and sheer is an ear shears and ear what that. Sinead. Okay.
Now you know why he was chosen.
Yeah, I was just going to say, a man of many talents. I doubt we'll ever have a conversation in Spanish or French on, but I'm in a kind of squelga. And is there anything else you want to say? I'm just conscious of time. You've mentioned the translators. We've mentioned where people can get it, and look, it's like everything else. When I introduce a CD or a book or whatever, is go and buy it. Go and enjoy it, because I enjoy it. You will. That's been my experience as a reader. But for the moment, we'll meet again in real life, probably 20 feet apart the next time or whatever, but whatever way the regulations are. But for the moment, Anne Murphy, thank you very much for sharing your stories with us first, and your love of language second. And Owen, you're as I say, you're the representative of the translation team. Thanks for all the work and bringing the stories to life in multiple languages.
Thanks, Martin.
Thanks, Martin. Thank you. Thanks, Anne.
Long go forward.